Hey guys, it is MissSimReno. If you are returning to the channel, welcome back. And if you are brand new, I am very excited that you decided to join me here today for another speed build. And today I am building a base game only home. I mentioned it in a build last week. I think it was the old farmhouse that I wanted to try to do a larger base game build because my intention with that build was for it to be base game, and I got totally carried away with all of the packs. So I wanted to stay good on my promise and give a base game only house a shot, and I am so glad that I did because I love this home. I am so pleased with how this came out. I was so nervous that it was going to look terrible because honestly it's the interiors that's what I struggle with. Like, I can make different shaped suburban homes all day with base game stuff for actual like build items, but when it comes to buy items, that is where the struggle is so very real, because I've mentioned this like a handful of times already. There's only so many styles I think you can achieve with base game, which is why it's so challenging. You can either make something like super modern, something just a little bit more traditional, like stereotypical suburban looking, or you go like ultra fancy like Victorian homes. So yeah, it's a little hard, but debug definitely helps with that. And as you can see, I'm already starting to go into the debug menu just a little bit to pull out that garage. So that's like a garage door that looks like it rolls up. It is from the base game debug menu, which is so freaking cool. I only discovered that, I don't know, maybe a month ago, and I used it in another base game build that I did. But as you can see here, the color scheme came together very quickly. This is actually this is pretty much the color scheme of my apartment building, which I think is why I liked it so much and why I think it worked so well. At least in my opinion, it works really nicely. But yeah, this is literally the color scheme of my apartment, except with black shutters on the windows, which I use windows that don't have shutters. But here I am just kind of evening out that, what am I trying to say, the incline a little bit there with the garage. So that is a trick that I learned from, oh gosh, I just forgot the name. It was, she's a fantastic YouTuber, and she has like all these really cool like tips and tricks for using like debug items as well as just like base game stuff in general, and it's so freaking cool. I can't remember the name. I'm going to have to look it up so I can tell you guys at some point. But yeah, if you use just the kind of like flat cement foundation, at least on the front of a portion of a home that you're trying to make a garage, you can actually bring the garage door down and make it look as though it's at the same level, so it prevents you from having to use terrain tools, which is so cool. I am so happy that I know how to do that now because it's so much easier to do than trying to manipulate the terrain. But here I am working on the landscaping, which I used a lot of debug plants just to make sure that, one, this home wasn't too expensive, I suppose, and then two, because I actually like a lot of the debug plants, even more than the plants that we have in the catalog sometimes, which is a little bit odd. But I love the landscaping just because it was so simple. I just used these hedges that were in the debug menu. We actually have a version as well in the catalog that costs simoleons, so you could honestly use those too if you wanted to, but I just really liked that they weren't overly flowered, so I used a lot of like deep greens with this, which I thought looked really, really nice. And it took a while to figure out fencing. I thought I wanted a fence in the front yard, kind of like separating a little front garden space, but I ended up not doing it, I don't believe. I think I just left it open, but I did fence in the backyard just because that felt a little bit more appropriate. I didn't add a gate or anything because the backyard just opens up to like a little nature walk path, and I couldn't make it connect to the front of the home, so there's no gate, so you just have to enter the yard from being in the house, which kind of makes sense to me. But I'm still trying to figure out like a little pathway or some kind of fencing, but I ended up just using these stepping stones, which I've used a lot in my builds, and they are base game as well. I don't have to keep saying that. This is a base game only build, you guys. I don't have to be like, oh, by the way, this item's base game. It's all base game, but I really like those because it allows you to create kind of a unique pathway, and I think it just looks really, really pretty. I also used a handful of different trees to kind of do the landscaping, which I really liked, and it just looks so cozy. It almost looks autumnal without me actually being in fall, with seasons turned on. So that's actually kind of nice how that worked out. I was also going to try to do just a half wall here to create a little bit of a fence, but it looked so awkward that it just ended. And then I was like, oh, maybe I can make like these cool columns and like an overhang. Maybe I can put the spindles on those columns, but it just wasn't working the way I wanted it to. So I ended up getting rid of it and actually just kind of quote unquote fencing up the front yard with more of the hedges, which I thought looked really nice. I don't typically just use a bunch of hedges like this and not mix flowers in them. I mixed a couple of flowers in them, but then it looked a bit unnatural, so I actually left it pretty much as is, maybe just adding a couple of like pink flowers here and some hydrangea there, but nothing crazy. It seems as though I kind of pulled back a little tiny bit with this build in regards to landscaping, so I don't know if you guys would agree, but I felt that way. I didn't spend a lot of time on the landscaping, and I just thought it looked really nice as is because all of the plants were pretty like dark green. Aside from that, I think it's a birch tree. I think it's technically an American birch tree in the front yard. Those two, again, they look a little autumnal, but they're a little bit lighter green, almost yellowish compared to everything else. But I thought it looked really, really cute. And that garage space, by the way, doesn't actually end up being a garage. I don't even put a car in the front driveway here, but you could definitely do that if you wanted to, because there are cars in the debug menu which serve that purpose. And now we're on to the interior, because I do work on the backyard last. And this was so hard to figure out a floor plan. It looks as though it came together really easily, but I actually really didn't like it that much at first because there was just so much open space. And when it comes to base game, it's so hard to fill all of the empty spaces. I did use debug a lot for the kitchen as an example, because there's a lot of clutter in base game debug that you can use for kitchens. But for the rest of the home, it was kind of hard, to be honest. It was really tough, but I am really pleased with how it came out. And once I figured out the floor plan downstairs and started actually decorating and everything, I ended up really, really enjoying it. And I loved how it allowed me to break things up on the upstairs as well. So the first thing we work on is the kitchen, using my favorite favorite base game counters and some of my favorite appliances as well, which was kind of nice. And they just have like cupboards all above the top here, and like I said, I use a lot of debug to clutter up the kitchen because I thought it was perfect. It was a great opportunity to do that because we have a lot of like wooden spoons and utensils and like spices and just some other things. I was also able to create a small island here with 2 bar stools. At first, I was a little uneasy because the only bar stool that I liked with base game and that fit kind of like the vibe I was going for was the one I ended up putting down, but the wood swatches were either way too dark or way too light, so I ended up going darker just to try to match it with the color scheme. But it may be a little uncomfortable, but I tried to just like plow through it because I know with base game builds, I'm probably going to be a little uncomfortable with some of the decisions I make because I'm not the biggest fan of base game and I really like using the other packs. But I put 2 shelves above the stove here and just kind of cluttered it up with a couple of items to give it a little bit more character, and I really like how it came out. There's a couple of candles, some books, and just a little picture frame, and then I made it look as though that little menu board was kind of leaning on the shelf, at least that's how I see it. And they have a microwave in the corner, and then I think I also give them a coffee maker, but I may not do it on camera, or I just do it later on because I put the decanter. There's like a decanter in the debug menu, and I placed it down on the island to make it look as though they've, been running around trying to refill their coffee cups all the time. And then I was like, well, if they have a decanter, they kind of need a coffee machine. So give them a coffee machine. And over here is going to be the dining space. So this is kind of like a combined kitchen, dining, and living space, which I actually did in a few of my builds recently. And I kind of really liked it. I liked it being so open instead of sectioned off. So I ended up using this somewhat industrial, rustic looking table with these fairly plain and simple dining chairs. I thought it was very pretty, and I wanted to at least tie in the darker wood that I used in the bar stools, so these dining chairs matched perfectly. And then artwork. Artwork with base game is always an absolute struggle. We all know this, so I repeat a lot of artwork, and I'm not going to apologize for it this time because I didn't have a choice. I don't know, I didn't want there to be a particular theme. Like, you can use the BB Show Hidden Objects cheat and you can get some more diversified artwork, but it's all like space themed, which drives me insane. And I didn't want there to be like a particular theme for this. I kind of wanted it to just be like a generic family home with base game, so I didn't use that, and I repeated some artwork, so you guys will have to kind of bear with me. I also know that at least one of those chairs won't be accessible because of that china cabinet that I put in that corner, but for me, I was only envisioning a family of 3 here, so the dining section was really just there if they had like friends over or something, so it didn't bother me that much. But I do apologize if that's kind of like bothery to you if you have to remove that or something, I do apologize. And now we're moving on to the living room, well, the living space, I guess. And it's basically right in the middle of the sunroom, which I absolutely love. I ended up having the couch actually face forward into the sunroom, like into the actual living space, instead of like putting the TV where the couch is, which was my first thought. But I liked how it kind of came together in this way because it left it very open and just filled the room with sunshine. And there's like some toddler toys because I was thinking that this family just had a toddler because there are only 2 bedrooms upstairs. I was really striving for more. I wanted at least 3, but I just couldn't make it work because I honestly made a very awkward shape. And I feel like this happens a lot where we have like this shape in mind and we achieve it on the exterior, and then inside we just like can't work out the floor plan the way that we thought we could. And that was kind of this build, but I do still really love it. So I was just like, you know what? It's going to be for our family of 3. I am fine with that. And here is kind of like the little entry area. So I knew that I had to at least put a bookcase somewhere because 1, I couldn't fit one in the living room. And then 2, there isn't too much to fill spaces like this. So it was going to be like a bookcase, a console table, a side table, something. I don't know. Like it had to be something. So I put a little end table here and another little armchair, kind of as a place for you to maybe like put on your shoes or something when you're going in and out of the house. And I also added a few like runner rugs and area rugs just to bring a little bit more character and a little bit more cohesiveness to the build. And this was actually where I ended up using the very first console table. I think there's like 3, maybe 2 or 3 actually in this build, which is fewer than I was anticipating using, considering I was using only base game, but I do really like it. I thought it was really nice. And then I just hang some pieces of artwork. I also put a couple of plants, which were also a bit limited on with base game, but I made it work. I really had a drive to use some of my absolute favorite plants. I think my favorite one comes from Dine Out, and then my second favorite comes from Jungle Adventure, I believe. So it was really hard to like not use those in this build because there were so many opportunities to do so. But I hang a mirror here as well just to kind of give the walls a little bit more than just the plain color that's on them. I think that's my problem, is I always have a drive to like cover the walls with things, and I usually can't do that with base game, at least not very well. But I also added a stereo to the living room just to kind of give it a little bit more character. And then I move on to this little landing area, which actually is on, the first floor, because this is where you go up the stairs to the second floor. I had some artwork, and I really wasn't sure what to put like against the stairs or near the bottom of the stairs. Like it was a little bit of a challenge because there is only so much you can do. So I added another console table with another lamp. I also put a backpack down here, which now that I look back on it is a little bit out of place because they only have a toddler. They don't have like a kid, but maybe it's like mom or dad's backpack. They use that instead of like a purse or a laptop bag or something. I don't really know. It really doesn't matter. I just think it's nice. And I also add another plant and another piece of artwork, and I think it looks nice. For what it is, I think it looks okay. And then down here is actually a little half bathroom. I wanted there to at least be a half bathroom downstairs. I typically strive for a minimum of a half bath, but sometimes I'm able to get a full bathroom. I just really couldn't work it out here. It would kind of look a little awkward with the rest of the layout. So they have a half bathroom, very simple, very cute, gets the job done, And then off to the left actually ends up being an office space. And it's a very small office space, but I think it's really nice. I think it's functional. I did test it out. It is functional, but I just think it's kind of a nice little use of the space considering the rooms that I was kind of planning out in my head. So there is the chess table in here, so there's at least some kind of skill building item. And then this is where the desk and the computer go. And I did clutter up the office actually more than I was anticipating being able to, which was really nice. I did add a fair amount of clutter to this top little shelf on this desk, which is one reason why I love this base game desk, is because there is plenty of place to go ahead and, really lay down a lot of objects and make it look cluttered and lived in and personalized. Of course, it would be very challenging to do so without this OMSP shelf because there's a lot of like smaller slots on that desk, but there aren't a lot of slots for like the items you'd anticipate being able to clip to it, if that makes any sense. I don't really know. And I also added that leading piece of artwork, which technically is a wall decoration, and it typically will sit on the floor, so don't really know why it's a wall decoration. But this is also the back entrance, exit, the back entrance to the backyard, onto the back porch, which I end up creating right here. Like I said, I pretty much work on the backyard as the last thing. I kind of work on the upstairs before I move to the backyard in its entirety, but I did kind of flesh out a little bit more of a shape to the back of the build because I really felt like it was lacking. So I added this little bump off here, and then I added a couple of more dormer windows. And even though I may not do it on camera, I actually do make each of those 2 tiles wide to match the size of the dormer on the front of the build. And I really liked that. It looked a little less awkward because I think the little 1 tile dormers looked a little awkward. I don't know, I just felt like they looked too skinny, like they didn't look realistic. Does anyone else feel that way about the 1 tile ones? I don't know. It could probably just be me. They probably looked fine, but I ended up liking what I did to them. And now I'm working on the upstairs floor plan, and there is, I think, only nope, there's 2 full bathrooms. I almost forgot. There are 2 full bathrooms upstairs, which is kind of nice. I probably could have made the master bathroom into another bedroom if I really wanted to, but I've really been enjoying creating like landing areas and hallways to make my builds a little bit more realistic. So if I were to do that, it would have meant that there would have been 2 bedrooms that are just directly connected to one another, and I just didn't want to do that this time around. At some point, I'm going to put that aside, but for right now, I didn't really want to do that. So it ended up just being like a master ensuite bathroom, which, you know what? At the end of the day, I did really like it, and I'm working on the parents' bedroom first, which was a bit of a long shape, but I think I made it work. I put the dresser over there by the bathroom door. They have a standing mirror, a nice little area rug, which I thought actually matched the kind of like pale yellow in the comforter really nicely. I don't think I've used that rug too often, so that was actually kind of nice to find. They have another armchair in here as well as another coat rack, and I actually put a painting easel in here because I honestly couldn't really think of anything else, and they needed more skill building items, so here they are. And I did make sure to kind of change up the overhead lights as I went, just so I didn't forget, because I really do like these base game overhead lights. They're some of my favorite, and I actually use them in a fair amount of builds, so it was really nice to be able to use something that I really, really liked in a build that's only base game. And that over there is actually the other full bathroom, and that one doesn't have a toddler potty. Now that I think about it, I put the toddler potty in the master bathroom just because it was bigger, and I figured that the parents would want to, you know, grab the toddler and potty train them in a bathroom that had a little bit more room, I suppose, but I guess it doesn't make a lot of sense. You should probably add a toddler potty to the other one just because it is closer to the toddler's bedroom, but either way, this is the little landing space, and I did put another like couch here. It's a little love seat as well as a bookcase because we don't have that much to clutter this up, but I did think that it was just kind of a nice little reading spot as well, especially with all of the light that kind of floods into that area. So I really liked it, and I also add a plant in the corner and just another piece of artwork. I really don't clutter it up too much, and I don't add too much into that little landing space because I thought it was really pretty as is. And then I move on to the toddler's room, and I was envisioning that they had a little boy, and I love his room. I'm not gonna lie, I think with base game we actually have a fair amount for like toddlers and kids rooms, and I was pleasantly surprised with the amount of clutter that I could actually put in this room and the amount of decorations that I was able to put in this room. So I was really pleased, and hopefully you guys enjoy it as well. It's kind of nice to try to use items that I don't use very often. I've actually been using that bookshelf a lot lately, but I don't use a lot of the base game items that much. And yet at the same time, I discovered that a lot of my favorite items are base game because more often than not, I'm not looking at what pack these items come from. I've just used items so much that I don't even have to think about the pack that they come from. So it was kind of nice to see that these curtains were base game, which I completely forgot. Of course, it makes sense because it matches, you know, the whole set. That little shelf over there, had no idea it was base game until I used it. And I don't know, it was just a pleasant surprise to be able to make a toddler's room that felt so personalized, so cute in my opinion, and so functional. So all in all, I was pretty happy, and I shrunk down a couple of these toys just to make it look as though he had a couple of toys just kind of like stacked up against his little bear chair, which I absolutely love. And even the wall decals were base game, which was really nice, but I hung up a couple of pictures, and then I cluttered up the dresser, and I did use a couple of debug items as well. Even though he's a toddler, I was still thinking that, I don't know, technically toddlers are, what, when you're over a year old, are you technically considered a toddler? I'm not quite sure, but I was thinking that maybe he's just making that transition to toddlerhood. So there are a few diapers and like some bottles and stuff over here on the dresser. I only placed down that many bottles, by the way, because I was trying to fill all the slots so I could freely place things on top of the dresser. That was my goal. I didn't just leave like 6 bottles lying around. But there's like a little toddler book, which I did size up at least one time using the shift bracket key, and a couple of separated like building blocks that no one will clean up and no one will be able to play with them, but they're nice decorations. And then I work on the master bathroom, which I did really like. There had to be a bathtub, at least one bathtub in this home because they do have a toddler. And over here in this little area is kind of a laundry area. Now, obviously, it's not a full-on laundry area like they have a washer and dryer, but there's a hamper and like a laundry basket, and I end up hanging some towels on the wall over there. I was going to try to put the toilet there, but it just looked too weird and it was like too separated from everything, so I put it on this wall and then added a couple of counter spaces and added a sink and the overhead mirror, and there I added the towels, and you guys saw me pluck out the plunger from Debug as well, so each bathroom in this build does have a plunger, which obviously your Sims won't grab and use if there's something wrong with the toilet. They prefer to get a wrench and like wrench the toilet when it's leaking, so that works too. I don't really know, but yeah, I kind of cluttered up their counter space there with a couple of more items that were kind of bathroom related, and I added a rubber ducky because I was thinking that's probably where they actually gave their son baths, and here's the toddler potty as well. And oh, I did put a toddler potty in this one. Look at me go. I completely forgot. I also put just a bathtub in here, so I guess you could actually potty train and or bathe the toddler in either bathroom, which is nice. So thank God, past MissSimReno, you did not let down future MissSimReno by not adding a toddler potty or a tub. And then I just switched out the overhead lights, and then I end up moving to the backyard, which I did really like. It was a little bit more spacious than I was anticipating, which was pleasant. It was a pleasant surprise, but I used the exact same hedges around the entire edge of the backyard, and I think they really just have like an outdoor dining section, and I'm not quite sure what else. I think a couple of gardening beds, because with base game we don't have any like outdoor toddler activities. I think that was with the toddler stuff pack that we got, the slide and like the ball pit and all that fun stuff, so I wasn't able to actually put anything out here for the toddler. However, I also didn't look too deep in the catalog when I was doing the backyard because I don't know, I just didn't really want there to be like a toddler activity outside yet, just because I was thinking that he was kind of just transitioning to toddlerhood, so maybe he would still be too little or a little bit too unstable. Let's just be real. Babies and toddlers are just drunk little people. And yeah, I just really didn't think there would be too much for him outside quite yet. So they do have the outdoor dining section. I do give them a grill, and I add some terrain paint here just to kind of flesh off this side of the backyard. And there's like maybe a seating area on the porch, and I think that's pretty much it for the build, aside from adding some outside lights here so it didn't look totally dim at night. But I hope you guys do enjoy this base game only build. I cannot wait to hear your thoughts on this one, since it's one of my favorites, and I will catch you guys next time I post a video, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye!
Full stop. Can't believe I live in your thoughts. I think about you all the time, morning, evening, and midnight. Such a wonderful delight. Forgo, give up everything that I own. Yeah, I'd give it all up now just to be with you somehow. Unexpected love was found. You're the rose in a garden, and it shows if I'm honest. You're the leaves in mid-August, and I've come out here to say that I love you. So slow, hold you in my arms, won't storm, a lightning strike as we hold each other tight.